On today's show, if the Ottawa Senators do go luxury shopping in free agency, could Nikolaj Ehlers or Brock Boeser find their way to the nation's capital?
And we continue our season in review segment today, the top four defensemen.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, and Pilsy, it took Tim Stützle less than 5 minutes at the World Championships to find his way onto the score sheet.
And of course, Ross, it was an assist. I don't think we would expect anything less from Timmy Superstar, but I like that he went to the Worlds, Ross. Keep it going. He had a good season, got a taste of the playoffs. Now he gets to play for his country. Germany was a country that was not included in the Four Nations face-off, despite having some elite NHL talent. So I think it's great that Timmy's playing for his international team and keeping the season alive.
Yeah, hopefully it goes better than the first time he went to Worlds. Remember, he got hurt in like the first game.
No, I don't remember that, actually.
Yeah, didn't like that one bit. But this is great experience for him and obviously a tune-up for the Olympics next year, where I'm sure a lot of these players who are not playing in the National Hockey League are using this as a tryout to get on to that roster in Italy. Here in Ottawa, a lot of the talk is who is going to be Tim Stützle's winger on the top line next season. We've covered extensively Claude Giroux in particular, the big ticket, unrestricted free agent on this team, and the $5.5 million that we have allocated towards him. We've had a ton of reaction, lots of it saying, guys, we need Claude Giroux to take a hometown discount because we need money to bring in a legitimate top six winger. So we figured the conversation was worth having with two of the goal-scoring wingers available that could play immediately in your top six. Do you want to start with Nikolaj Ehlers or Brock Boeser, Pilsy? I'll ask you, which one of those two guys do you think would fit best?
I think both of them would, Ross. They're a little bit different players, but ultimately they have the same defining skill, which is scoring goals. You need someone that can score goals to play with Tim Stützle. Brock Boeser has hit 40 goals in his career not that long ago. I think just not this season, but last season. Nikolaj Ehlers surprised me, Ross, to find out he has not scored 30 goals, 29 goals, 28 goals. He's always in the mix for mid-20s, but he's had some health concerns over his career. I don't think I really lean too far one way or another. I guess if I had to answer, I would probably go Brock Boeser, just because you get a little bit more size there, and I don't think he's had the injury concerns that Nikolaj Ehlers has had. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but just from listing both these guys and looking at their games played, it doesn't seem like he's missed the same amount of time. And I think you get that Nodak Sens connection, Ross. We got the Nodak Sens here. Add another American to Canada's nation's capital team. I think Brock Boeser could be a really good fit. And he's come from Vancouver, so hopefully that wouldn't be too much of an adjustment. I guess Ehlers is coming from Winnipeg, so both these guys not having to change countries here.
Yeah, I think that Ehlers is on the move this offseason. He's played his entire career, all 10 years of it with Winnipeg. Meanwhile, Brock Boeser's played his entire 9-year career with the Vancouver Canucks, and from the sounds of it, he didn't want to leave. I think this is an organizational decision that they're ready to move on from Brock Boeser. I don't want to party poop right away, Pilsy. I don't think either guy fits, not only because of the money they'll command, but I think that you're looking at the options in terms of the value bin. If you're going to free agency, a lot of teams have a lot of cap room this offseason, and I don't want to get into a bidding war on a long-term contract for either of these players.
Let me ease your mind, Ross. I don't see a scenario where Steve Staios goes big game hunting in free agency and tries to snag the big prize by overpaying, right? Like he even talked about it last offseason. there were some right shot defensemen that he was interested in. And then he said, we weren't about to pay what other teams were paying. Like Chris Tanev, I think the Sens were definitely in on, but they weren't going near the contract that the Leafs ended up giving him, which ultimately I think Leafs fans are probably pretty happy. We'll see how they feel at the end of that deal. The Leafs always find some way to make that money disappear, though. That's a story for another day. But I don't see Steve Stais being one of those GMs, Ross, that is like, I have to make a splash. I have to do something big here, even if I have to overpay.
So let's look at Nikolaj Ehlers first, because if you make me pick, I'll say Nikolaj Ehlers as the speed complement to Tim Stützle. We felt sometimes last season playing with Tkachuk and Claude Giroux, two guys that like to slow the pace down and play against the wall and make nifty passes. You didn't have that speed complement to go alongside Tim Stützle. So Nikolaj Ehlers certainly has that. His nickname is Fly, the Danish Dash. 69 games played, 24 goals, 63 points, a plus 14 and 17 penalty minutes on the season. If you look at his career in Winnipeg, he's a plus 106 in 674 career games with 520 points. I love the profile that he has. I just think that he's basically a little bit faster and a little bit smaller in terms of stature than Fabian Zetterlund. But they do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ehlers has the physical side of his game that Fabian Zetterlund has. But yeah, it's a fair point. I think with both Ehlers and Zetterlund, when they're at the top of their game, healthy, put in positions to succeed, you can expect them to get mid-20s goals.
Exactly. And I think I would rather pay Fabian Zetterlund $3.5 to $4 million than Nikolaj Ehlers over $8 million per season. So that's why I'm out on Nikolaj Ehlers. Look, I love the player. I actually lived in Halifax the 2 years that Ehlers played for the Mooseheads, and this guy was an electric factory. I think he had a 57-game point streak in junior that year. He was unreal and has had a great NHL career as well. I just look at overall in terms of the salary structure, and it scares me away because somebody is going to overpay for Nikolaj Ehlers. And it should also be noted that Ehlers did have 2 goals and an assist in that 4-0 win for Winnipeg over the Dallas Stars in game 2 of that best of 7. But before that, and this might shock you, Pilsy, Nikolaj Ehlers' last playoff goal before that was during the COVID bubble. No goals in the series against Vegas, no goals in the series against Colorado, and no goals in the series against the St. Louis Blues. That's 14 playoff games where he went 4 assists, no goals, minus 11. So if we're looking for Ottawa to take a step in the next step, we've already got guys that can get you to the playoffs. Now I think the Senators need to target playoff-type players in the next level.
Yeah, Ross, I'm looking at his totals. 7 appearances in the NHL playoffs, 42 games total, 6 goals and 12 assists, 18 points in 42 playoff games. So that's fair. That's certainly concerning. But let's take a look at the other guy, Ross. Brock Boeser, only 29 games in the playoffs, but 23 points. The last time he was in the playoffs, he had 12 points in 12 games with the Vancouver Canucks. So if you're looking for an uptick in playoff performances, and it's not quite point per game, but still impressive numbers in the playoffs for Brock Boeser.
And the thing with Brock Boeser is he would have familiarity with Travis Green coaching him in Vancouver. This past year, Boeser had 25 goals, 25 assists, and was minus 25. No, those aren't typos. Very consistent in terms of the number 25 in 75 games. He had 16 penalty minutes. Both Boeser and Ehlers are 28 years old. Ehlers is a left shot, but plays left or right wing, and Boeser is a traditional right wing player. Boeser's also got a cannon on the power play. He's got a great shot. That is enticing, but the Senators also need to focus on 5-on-5 scoring this offseason. So,
well, I feel like they covered that in the trade deadline, Ross, right? Like Dylan Cousins, a much better 5-on-5 than Josh Norris. Fabian Zetterlund had glowing 5-on-5 numbers. And what's one thing that the Ottawa Senators power play does not have since Josh Norris left?
Yeah, shooter.
A finisher, not just a shooter, Ross, but a finisher, a guy that you can game plan a power play around, figuring out a way to get the puck to him in open spaces. They don't really have that guy anymore.
No, AFP projections. We've been using them for all of our Senators projections as well to get a sense of what the analytics would say you're going to pay these guys. Both Ehlers and Boeser are on track for 6-year extensions according to AFP projections. Ehlers at $8.1 million and Boeser at $8.46. Now, the way we put all of our eggs in the basket yesterday on the show, the Sens had $3.17 million in cap space. If you take off Giroux's 5.5, they could technically afford these guys.
I'm glad you took the words right out of my mouth, Ross. This is where I wanted this conversation to go. We've had a bunch of people on our YouTube commenting, guys, G's been great, but he's slowing down. If you guys haven't projected at making 5.5 million, some Sens fans are not interested in that. So we need to at least have the discussion, Russ. I think it's probably pretty clear to both of us and people watching where we'll stand on this, but it's worth having the discussion. Do you consider letting go? What is Giroux? 37, about to be 38. Do you consider letting a guy in his late 30s go and then going all in on one of these guys in their late 20s that are proven goal scorers in their prime? It's tough because it's just the way the Senators roster is set up right now. I find myself looking at Claude Giroux and David Perron and being like, there's only room for one of these guys in this organization, which is not fair to either of them. And I don't want to put that on either of them, but I don't know where Perron goes. He shouldn't be in your top 6. Giroux at the most should be under second line. We can't have him playing top line minutes with Timmy anymore, in my opinion. Now that Timmy's good at the faceoffs, Brady also can help out with the faceoffs if needed, and they need someone with speed and a scoring finish. But then where you put Giroux on your third line, Perron on your fourth line, you can't be doing that. Part of me is like, if you think that you can go get one of these two guys, it's worth considering. But man, is it an ultimate gamble? Because if you let Giroux walk, if he gets to free agency and it's because you've decided you're not going to pay him, he's not going to come back, and he's not going to come back at a hometown discount. That's for sure. And then what if you get outbid, or Ehlers and or Boeser just are like, hey, you guys are offering great money, but this is my first time hitting the open market and I want to pick where I want to play. And unfortunately, I have better places or better opportunities that I think I want to explore instead. You could offer them a blank check and maybe they don't want to go there, right? So you're taking a huge risk. So for me, Ross, I'll let you have your piece, but for me, sign Claude Giroux, see what you have left over, and then make your move. So I don't think it's realistic that either one of these players can be coming to Ottawa.
No, I agree with you. I think that if they're going to upgrade the roster, it will be through trade, not necessarily through free agency, at least for those top priorities in a right shot defenseman and a top 6 forward. Let us know in the comments how you feel about Nikolaj Ehlers and Brock Boeser. What's the highest you'd go on a contract offer for those unrestricted free agents? On the other side, we'll turn our attention to the defensemen on the Ottawa Senators, a much improved blue line. It was internal growth and additions that complemented the players they already had. Jake Sanderson, Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot, Nick Jensen, season in reviews on the other side. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachio Pilsy here, reporting for duty. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Well, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the salt and pepper flavor, the light purple bag. Ross is a lightly salted guy, but if you don't want to deal with the shells, check out the no shells variety. Perfect snack for the grab and go busy days. Whether you're snacking at your desk during the podcast, on a road trip to Ottawa, or you just need a quick protein boost, they're always a solid go-to. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
right, Billsy, it is back to our season in reviews. If you missed yesterday, we covered the goaltenders on the Ottawa Senators roster. You can find every Locked On Senators podcast wherever you download yours. We're also free and available on YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers who make us your first listen each and every day all across the platforms, and we appreciate the heck out of you. A like, a subscription, they go a long way to helping the show grow. Jake Sanderson is a superstar in the National Hockey League. The entire world of hockey woke up to him during the Four Nations, but Sens fans are like, we know, dude, he's unreal. And the offense now matches the defensive side of his game. Lots of times with young defensemen, they come up, the offense is there, but you're trying to figure out how they can play well in their own end and in transition. Jake Sanderson was the complete opposite, Pillsy. This guy came into the league and was going up against the other team's top line since day one, basically. But now he's figured out a way to add the two-way element to his game.
Yeah, and that takes time, Ross, because I think when he initially entered the league, it's like, okay, wow, I'm making the jump from college to NHL. I'm going up against top competition. How about I just focus on the defensive side of my game? Like, let's focus on shutting plays down, making simple plays, responsible plays, getting the puck to the forwards, and then setting back and making sure I'm defending my zone, good gap reads, things like that. Well, after a couple of years, he got the hang of that, and he's like, okay. He even said it. I don't think it was this offseason. I think it was last offseason where he's like, I'm going to start focusing on the offensive side of my game. I'm going to start shooting the puck more. I want to emulate more players like Cale Makar that are offensive as well. And he figured out a way to do that. He's shooting the puck a lot more than he had before. He cracks double digit in goals again this year with 11. Career high in points, smashed his previous record of 38 with 57 this year. And he ended up being the number one defenseman on the top power play unit for the Ottawa Senators. And that helped out his offense as well. So Jake Sanderson in his third season in the NHL, first season of his massive new contract. He's really provided the worth and the expectations that when the Ottawa Senators drafted him and handed him this massive contract, he's lived up to it already, in my opinion.
And I think it's even more shocking that he only turns 23 years old this summer. Now, he had a great start to the year in October. That Tampa Bay game sticks out right away where he had 3 assists. He was unreal, and they won that game 5-4. Then, when Artem Zub got hurt, it was a bit of a struggle for him, especially in November, where he's a -9 in 14 games and only had 6 points. But after the Four Nations, this guy took his game to a whole other level offensively. Now, was it the confidence from getting to play in that tournament, or was it just a natural progression of how he's played? But he had 22 points in the last 25 games of the season, was a +1 during that stretch, and only took 2 minor penalties. He had more game-winning goals than he did penalties in the last 25 games of the year. So Jake Sanderson, I still believe, is scratching the surface of what will be a Norris caliber defenseman for many years to come. The plus-minus overall in the season doesn't look great at -14, but I mentioned before that on players that had over 1,000 minutes of 5-on-5 play this season, defensemen that is, he had the second lowest on-ice shooting percentage in the entire league. Only Rasmus Andersson was lower. I believe it was 5%, where most players are around 9 to 14 in that category. So I don't put any weight into that. I look at a player who led this team in ice time and also only took 6 minor penalties all friggin' season. So he defends with his feet. He defends with his stick in terms of getting in the right position. That play sticks out in the game 5 against Toronto where he just stole the goal right away from the net front guy. And not only did he do that, a lot of defensemen would just swat at it and go away. No, it sticks to his blade, and all of a sudden, it's an offensive rush the other way. Like, the way he plays is at full speed all the time, and he's only going to get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, and Ross, I was talking about how he's shooting the puck more. This surprised me. I don't know if you knew this. Jake Sanderson finished second on the Ottawa Senators in shots on goal this year, only behind Brady Tkachuk. And, I mean, He was 101 shots behind Brady Tkachuk, but right next to Sanderson, Drake Batherson with 192. Sanderson finished with 195 shots this season. So he's really putting pucks towards the net. He scored big goals. He had the overtime game winner in game 4. I was live, boots on the ground for that. Absolutely electric. That play doesn't happen without the speed and the way that he's able to skate. He keeps that puck in coming from the bench. And that's been the thing too, Ross. Like, this guy's known for his skating. He's only going to get better. Like, he's entering the time where you say this guy's entering his prime. Like,
he was still on like prospect lists last year, like the under 23 prospect list.
Yeah. So, like, what would you say a prime for a defenseman is? Like 26 to 30, probably something like that.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. So he, like, oh my God, this kid is absolutely amazing. And I know some other fan bases, they don't fully get the Jake Sanderson experience, and that's fine. He doesn't
It's not for everybody.
Well, he doesn't pop off on the box scores as much as some other defensemen, and that's okay. But when you watch this guy play, and when hockey analysts, especially guys that have played the game, dissect his game and cover it, there's so much respect for what he's been able to do at such a young age.
Only 3 defensemen in the National Hockey League this past season averaged more than a point per game, and they are the 3 nominees for the Norris Trophy: Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, and Zach Werenski. Is it wild for me to say that next season Jake Sanderson will be at a point per game?
Yeah, I don't think he's hitting 80 points.
Okay, I'll wait for my hot take then.
Yeah, I don't know. If he can get in the 60s in points, I think that's where you want him to be. Like, anywhere from 50 to 65, I think it is a solid spot for Jake Sanderson, and I don't see why he can't be there. Ross, I want to get to a point where the Norris nominees, and nothing against those guys, all phenomenal defensemen, all deserving of it, but doesn't it seem just like every year it's just like, who are the defensemen with the most points?
Yeah, I feel like they should have a second award for like best stay-at-home defenseman.
Yeah, or best defensive defenseman or something, because
like they have the best defensive forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. So that's the thing. And again, not taking anything away from him. Being offensive as a defenseman is incredible, and it adds so much value, and it's huge.
We were on the other side of this argument when Erik Karlsson was a Senator.
But mind you, he was blowing the doors off points.
Yeah, in a low-scoring era, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little bit different, but yes, fair point. We can spin zone narratives any way we want on the show, Ross. But yeah, that's just something I would like to see considered by the NHL.
Easy moment of the year for Jake Sanderson, Game 4 overtime winner to keep the Sens season alive. But a big reason, not a big, but a important reason for Jake Sanderson's success is Artem Zub. On the other side, we'll look back at the season that was for number 2 and the number 2 pair, Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen. Next, you're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pilsy. So the Ottawa Senators finally have a number 1 defenseman, a true number 1 defenseman for the first time since Erik Karlsson. With all due respect to Thomas Chabot, of course, who we'll get to in a few moments, but let's finish the first pair first. Artem Zub, who has kind of low-key snuck his way into the Senators' top 10 in games played by a defenseman all time. I thought he had a really nice season with 56 games, 2 goals. One was an important one against the New Jersey Devils. He had 13 points, was +3, and had 34 penalty minutes. He's 29 years old, and he signed for 2 more seasons at $4.6 million. How would you summarize the season that was for Artem Zub?
First word that came to mind for me, Ross, was stable. Like, when he's out there, he's just so stable, so consistent. He provides that calm, cool, collected energy and vibe that helps Sanderson do his game and not freak out or try to do too much. He knows Artem Zub is always going to be back there if Sandy wants to join the rush, if Sandy wants to pinch or go for a skate with the puck, transitioning it up the ice. He's got a guy in Zub that he knows well. They've played a lot of time together, and they're a great shutdown pair, and they've been used as a shutdown pair. And without someone that plays the style of game that Artem Zub has, I'm not sure Sanderson's able to be as effective as he can. Like, we saw him play with Travis Hamonic, Ross, and it wasn't the same results. And a lot of that was at the start of the season when Artem Zub was injured. And that's when Sanderson was not the Sanderson we know and love. So although I don't want to fully say that without Zub, Sanderson isn't a number one defenseman, that's not at all what I'm saying. But I'm saying Zub really helps support Sanderson and allows him to play at a much higher level.
In almost 750 minutes together at 5-on-5 this season, the Ottawa Senators' expected goals percentage was 56.3 when Sanderson and Zub were on the ice. When it was Sanderson and Hamonic, that number dipped to 46% in almost 400 minutes of ice time. The biggest difference was in the defensive aspect, where the Senators average, it was a 2.69 expected goals against per 60 minutes. And with Sanderson and Zub, it was 1.89. Truly an elite shutdown pair. They went up against the other team's best lineup every single night, and they were able to produce. But with Artem Zub, I even want to give some credit, just wherever Zub played was the best in expected goals percentage. In terms of D partners this season for the Senators that played over 50 minutes together, Thomas Chabot with Artem Zub was the best, with 74% in 65 minutes. Wow. Clevin and Zub was the third best pair with 110 minutes played and 58%, and then 56 for Sanderson and Zub. So wherever Zub played, it stabilized no matter what. Now, with Zub, there's not one moment that necessarily sticks out, but it's just the consistency of what he brings. And it feels like he's been around for so long, and when he signed, he had already played in the KHL for a long time. So it's kind of wild that he doesn't turn 30 until next October. It feels like this is a guy who's at a very, very reasonable cap hit in 4.6 mil.
Yeah, and then Ross, you look at Artem Zub's overall resume, and I think Sens fans forget this is a guy that also played 6 years in the KHL with 256 KHL regular season games and 52 KHL playoff games. Like, he has so much experience, and although it seems like he's only been here for a little bit, like you mentioned, top 10 in games played in Ottawa Senators.
Just passed Mark Mathot by 2 games.
Yeah, like, this guy has so much experience under his belt, and he finished third on the Ottawa Senators in block shots behind only Jake Sanderson, who had 163. Thomas Chabot had 145, and then Zub third with 118. So the top pair blocked, math guy, 281 shots. So, like, they're out there eating pucks, and Zub's a big part of that.
Yeah, huge part of that. And I really, really hope, I expect him to be back. It just makes sense for that pair to stay together with Jake Sanderson.
What do you mean you expect him to be back? He's signed. He's staying.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So you
don't trade Artem Zub.
He's an untouchable for you.
I wouldn't say untouchable, but like, it just, I don't know. It would just be crazy to be like, all right, we have our number one defenseman and we have the partner that he works best with.
Correct.
And even, Ross, like you mentioned, if we decide, hey, we got to spread some of the wealth around on D, Jake Sanderson is an elite number one defenseman, let's put someone else with him. You just mentioned it. Put Artem Zub anywhere, and he's making any D pair better. Why would you trade that? I don't know. You have to look at a slam dunk upgrade or hockey trade for me to even consider that. I don't want Artem Zub moving at all.
No, and you also have to play, and I don't think the team will, but I will, that he is literally a fan favorite and has been since day one.
Zuby!
Yeah, Zuby! Way to go! Love the way that he's grown into his role, and I think that the numbers tell the story that whoever he played with was the most stable pair at that time for the Ottawa Senators. And I know it's a small sample size, 60 minutes, but that expected goals percentage with Chabot and Zub on the ice is the best in the National Hockey League with players who have played 60 minutes or more together.
Yeah, it's incredible.
among defensemen.
I don't know. This just popped in my head, Ross. Do you think, and again, we are not advocating for Zub to be traded. There's no imminence.
No, maybe.
Is that the right word? I don't know. There's nothing that's leading us to believe that he will be traded. But
Correct.
would that be something that Sens management would bring in Jake Sanderson and be like, hey, we're looking at a deal here to move Zub. Like, how do you feel about that? Or is that like he's a 22-year-old defenseman? Maybe he's not at that stage yet. But I mean, that's a big deal, switching your number one defenseman's defense partner.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't go to Brady Tkachuk before trading Josh Norris, I don't think they're doing that for anybody or anything.
And that's a fair point. But Josh Norris was not Brady Tkachuk's stapled partner, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, it's worth thinking about, but it's not happening. Artem Zub will be back, and we'll be able to get those Zub chants rolling at the CTC. Thomas Chabot, maybe the most improved player year over year for the Ottawa Senators, and availability was a big part of that. Thomas Chabot played in 80 games for the first time in his NHL career and had 9 goals, 45 points. This was also his first season as a plus player. And not only was he just a plus, he was second best on the team as a plus 17 with 24 penalty minutes. He's got 3 years left on his contract worth $8 million per season. How would you give your impression of Chabot's year?
I love Chabot's this year, Ross. Like, what could you say? What could you nitpick? He plays 80 games. He's healthy at the end of the season. He was good in the playoffs, in my opinion. He finished with 4 points in 6 games. He
got better as the series went on. I thought game 1 and 2 wasn't his best. And
Agreed.
Then he was also, we'll get to Nick Jensen, but Jensen was obviously playing at less than 100%.
Yes, for sure. It's crazy, Ross, that he's still on this contract. Like we were making sense of the Sens powered by Sens Central when he signed this deal. And I remember talking about it, and that seems like a lifetime ago now. He's only got 3 years left on it, but that was one of the, like that's almost like the start of a chapter right there for the Ottawa Senators, moving on from the 2017 squad and bringing in the new one, and Thomas Chabot committing on a massive deal long-term. So I'm so glad, Ross, that he can strip that title of being one of the players with the most NHL games played without a playoff game. Him and Brady Tkachuk were kind of leaders in those games played categories, unfortunately, but now they got a taste of it. And after a good season, Ross, where he's been healthy, finally an off season where he's not recovering and probably doing rehab and physio and all those things, I think Thomas Chabot is going to be poised to have a massive, massive year next year as well.
And we tallied the numbers midway through the season of just how many D partners Chabot has played with.
It was crazy.
Erik Karlsson left. Even the first year when Karlsson was there, he played a bunch with Erik Karlsson. And then it was DeMello and Ceci. Then it was Hainsey and Zaitsev, Gabranson, Zub Zaitsev, Chychrun, Brandstrom. This year, having Nick Jensen alongside him, those two played the 9th most minutes of any D pair in the National Hockey League, 985 minutes together. And at the start of the year in particular, the first half, those two were unreal together. So I think that it's unfortunate Nick Jensen obviously dealt with something that affected his play down the stretch. But Thomas Chabot, to me, is such a rejuvenating year for him, and getting to go to the playoffs for the first time. I'm expecting a massive next season for him. Now, can it get that much better than what we saw? I'd be comfortable if he runs this exact same season back, but I think we should put the plateau at 50 points for next year. Let's just get it up a little bit. I know he's not on the first power play unit, and maybe you could open him up by playing him a little bit more at 5-on-5 and taking away the PK responsibilities for him. I just think it's unnecessary for him to be out there on the penalty kill. I think Tyler Kleven should take that role, and that way you could have, I know he doesn't run out of gas. This guy's played so many minutes in the league, but I do think that it would be beneficial for him to spend more time 5-on-5 and less on the PK.
Yep, I'm with you. I agree. And I think Tyler Kleven is ready to be given the chance to take more of that role on. So, yeah, Thomas Chabot, great year. And let's see him run it back.
We'll see if he runs it back with his partner, Nick Jensen. 34 years old, his first season in Ottawa after being acquired in the Jacob Chychrun trade last summer, had 71 games played, 21 points, led all defensemen on the Ottawa Senators with a plus 18 rating, and only had 3 minor penalties all year long for 6 penalty minutes. He's got 1 year left on his contract at $4.05 million. What was your first and final impression of Nick Jensen?
My first impression, Ross, I'll be honest, and I'm on a record about this. In the preseason, I was underwhelmed with Nick Jensen, and I was thinking, oh man, we just traded away. Sure, he didn't fit in Jacob Chychrun in Ottawa, but we just traded away a elite offensive defenseman for older two-way guy, and the fit didn't seem to be looking good for me in the preseason. I'm talking, so this was early. You asked my first impressions. That's what they were. And then he started playing with Thomas Chabot, and they really looked great together. And I completely did a 180. I think he was one of at the start of the year, Ross, of all the players that Steve Staios acquired, Nick Jensen was the most impressive, even more than Linus Hallmark. Like Amadio, Perron, all those, Nick Cousins. Jensen was the guy that was really the shining star of Steve Staios' offseason. Now, impression of how his season ended has me concerned, and it's all injury related. It's nothing to do with his play, because I'm sure his play was affected by being injured. He had 5 straight weeks of maintenance days, not being on the ice for morning skates, day-to-day tags put on him, not sure if he's going to play. And then throughout those, even getting hurt, like Ross, we were at practice, the morning skate the one day, and he slipped on a board battle and crashed into the boards really awkwardly and had to be helped off the ice. Like, he just had an unlucky year as far as injuries went at the end of it. And his end of the year presser, I think it raised more concern than it did soothe anyone about his injury concerns. I wouldn't be that surprised. Brandon Piller, not a doctor. I don't know anything about this. This is just vibes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at some off-season work that may put him on the shelf for a bit. I'm hoping he's back for training camp, but I bet somewhere, Ross, mid-June or something like that, we hear about something with Nick Jensen.
Because his start of the season was phenomenal. In the first 49 games, he had 18 points and was plus 16 with only 2 minor penalties, averaging a ton of ice time, over 20 a game, closer to 21. And in the final 22 games, he was still plus 2, but he had 3 assists. So the offense just kind of dried up completely. He had a number of less takeaways per game as well. Only 3 takeaways in the last 22 games, which comes out as 0.1 per game, whereas in the first 49 he had 17, which is more like 0.4. Not the huge difference, but where the way he defends, he's not one of those bangers who's just gonna make sure that you're physically unwell coming across the blue line, but he defends with his stick and his feet just like Jake Sanderson, and it was clearly effective. But I still think he was an effective player for the Ottawa Senators, and I really hope we see him at 100% health, because when he is healthy, he's an extremely efficient player and makes life a lot easier on his partner.
And Ross, I talked about Thomas Chabot getting the label stripped off him of a player that's played the longest in the NHL without playoffs. We got to get back to the playoffs for Nick Jensen, because him having 33 NHL playoff games and 0 points,
that's tough.
It's crazy. We got to end that. We got to get Nick Jensen a playoff point. So let's bring it back to the postseason. Do it for Nick, guys. Come on.
Yeah. So what are your expectations for Nick Jensen next season?
I'm so torn on this, Ross, because we talked about Thomas Chabot having a handful of random partners that just did not work for him. And then he finally finds this guy. They have an amazing season. So obviously, my first inclination is be like, okay, those two are the second pair. Let's run it back. They were good. Let's just keep it going. But then part of me is like, man, if you could put Tyler Kleven and Nick Jensen as your third pair, that would be such a good pair. You get Tyler Kleven, the physical shutdown guy, and then Nick Jensen, the veteran guy that can transition the puck up the ice and help mentor Tyler Kleven. A little bit different style of a player than Matinpalo. And well, you go from Nicholas Matinpalo to Nick Jensen. So easy for Tyler Clevin. Nice, easy
Nick,
transition.
give me the puck.
Yeah, Nick to Nick. But I just think he would slot in better at this stage of his career as a third pair defenseman. But then now we're running back. The age-old issue is who's going to play with Thomas Chabot, and can you find him a partner that he works with, which is not a great place to be. So I don't know what to expect from Nick Jensen next season, Ross. I think I'm not going to be able to give you a proper answer until we find out what his health is come training camp, which is obviously nowhere near here.
And we'll continue to wait for that. That was the season in review for Nick Jensen. All right, Pills, any final thoughts on today's show?
Yes, final thoughts for me is following along with Blake Montgomery and the London Knights. The London Knights beat the Ottawa Generals again, but Blake Montgomery still with no points in this series, which is a little bit surprising. But yeah, if you're a fan of the OHL, this is the battle of Goliaths here in the OHL final. So definitely if you're in those areas, get to some of those games. And we hope to see Blake Montgomery get hot again before the Mem Cup, which, sorry, Oshawa, but I'm already kind of chalking up London as getting there.
Yeah, we need to have Sens prospects playing as long as possible. We'll also continue to follow the World Championships where Tim Stützle, Shane Pinto, and Nicholas Matinpalo are plying their trade. Senators posting this morning on social media that their amateur scouting meetings are underway. So are ours here on Locked On Senators. We are about 2 weeks away from beginning our top 50 draft profiles, as we've done every year over the last 5 years. It's great for draft nerds. It's also great to learn about the next generation coming in to the National Hockey League. But tomorrow we'll continue our season in reviews. We always have a nice juicy topic for you off the top of the show as well. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. If you liked it, click the thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can also leave a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.